of talked a little bit about this, and I always thought it was interesting because we all have, all kinds of stories about how we end up with the instruments, where that journey starts. And the instrument that we're talking about today is guitar. And Jessy, what was that very first guitar that you can recall that you ever owned?
They were actually, I just started remembering my dad had a guitar. Like I think he bought it in Reynosa, and it was a little bit better playing guitars than the ones they were buying me for $10. I went through I don't know, about 10 or 20 of those, and but you could shoot arrows with those things. I remember being at the park and the wind would be blowing so hard that you could literally just hold it up in the air, and the wind would blow through the strings and it would sustain like an ebow. Or it's just something we did that was a lot of fun. I mean, eventually, one Christmas, my dad got me an electric guitar, and it was a brand called Goya. It was kind of shaped like a Fender, but it was kind of offset. The bottom stuck out more than the top horn did. And it was red and white. It wasn't a very good guitar, and it had a green amplifier. It was pretty big. It had 12-inch speaker, and it was really loud. And that was what I was trying to learn on. I mean,
did you? Well, look. Speaking of that, the Goya. It's interesting because some people do collect those now.
I know.
They're very cool.
I've never seen the one I had anywhere.
I mean, so did you get like a chord book, or how did you, were you expected to know, music, or did you ever play? What do you remember playing on that early guitar?
My dad had a few chord books. They were mostly Spanish, but they had the chord formation, and I would copy those and try to learn that. But I was really slow at it. I couldn't comprehend it for some reason. And I just didn't have the patience. And so I just started doing it on my own. Like one of the first songs I learned by myself was on the E string, the first E string, which Norwegian Wood by the Beatles. And that's just from remembering the melody. Da, 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 and that's what I learned. And one of my brother-in-laws, ex-brother-in-law, I guess now, he taught me that Sunshine of Your Love. And that was a big help. I was like, kind of got me started with using different strings. But still, it took me a long time to figure, other stuff out.
Were you using? I mean, were you? I guess at this time you're playing traditional chords. I mean, did you play bar chord or anything like that, or it was just strictly like,
mostly one string.
Oh, okay.
Like I said, "Sunshine of Your Love" was the first one that jumped to another string, and I thought, "Oh, okay." That's what he showed me, and I go. And he told me, you can go up and down like that. And I couldn't figure out what he meant. But I did mess around with it more, often, and kind of played with it. But I was really slow. It wasn't until I met my...
How old were you at that time when you had that?
I think I was 15 or 16.
Okay.
And... it was later on when I was 17 that I met my co-guitarist on Slammer, Rudy. He was teaching me stuff. And I met him because one day I was in my backyard and I could hear a band playing really loud. And all I could hear was the vocal come in. Just give me some of that. And then, blah, a bunch of noise. I go, what the hell is that? And so I started following it, and I got to their house, and a friend of mine was sitting in the porch, and I said, what are you doing here? Oh, I'm the sound man. The sound man? What is that? Oh, I run the sound. What do you mean you run the sound? Well, you hook up the microphones and I turn them up and down. If they stick that microphone up their mouth, I fucking turn it down. Anyway, I go, and he says, I help them move the equipment. Hey, well, don't you need help? Maybe I can help y'all. I'll do it for free. Well, you have to talk to the band. And then they go into a grand funk song, and I kept telling, what is that song they're playing that starts out? Just give me some of that. They're trying to play the Beatles, but they're fucking it up. Tell me about it. And it's just so loud, I remember he had a fuzz face, a blue one. No, super fuzz, and it was red and blue. It was real distorted to hell, man. And it sounded really good on the Grand Funk song, but not on that
their
Beatles song.
Their Beatles.
and that was a big inspiration for me that, hey, if they can do it, I can do it too. And I wanted to learn. That's how by watching them, I said, I'll do it for free. I'll help you all load equipment as long as you let me sit in where y'all are practicing so I can watch y'all learn songs and how y'all put them together. And that's how I learned.
So during this time, at this particular moment, you still have the red guitar?
No, actually, by then, I already had smashed it. Because every time I get home from school, somebody was breaking the part off of it, and I get mad at mom and go, why are you letting them do that? Oh, what's wrong with that? It's not hurting it. Look, they broke the whammy bar off of it. And by the third time I got home, I got so mad, I just went outside and smashed it on the tree.
Wow.
That we had in the backyard. And I had a bad temper back then. Just like my dad. Anyway, so I didn't have a guitar for a long time. I had to settle back to the Reynosa Special.
Oh, wow. and were these 4-string or the actual 6-string guitars?
Which ones?
The Reynosa.
There were 6. There were 6.
Okay, regular 6-string guitars. Okay.
And then they
were they steel string or were they monofilament?
My dad called them gut strings.
Oh,
they were like, they were cheap strings from Mexico, and I'd take them off and put regular guitar strings, and that was like a lighter gauge. Back then we used 8s, and so it was really light.
Wow.
And that's what made it ring out when you would hold it up in the wind.
And you weren't popping strings? I mean, with 8s?
Okay. I would pop that 8 all the time. But I learned to play real, gently.
Right.
And so after a while, I got used to it, and no, I wasn't popping them anymore. And but after a while, I was borrowing guitars from other people, and they were all SGs. I started remembering that last night, that I borrowed several SGs from different people.
Wow.
And that's why I got to like them. And some had that wraparound bridge. That guitar player had a maroon one that he would leave there at his brother's house, and I'd use that, and Rudy would play the bass. And he he had a Jaguar Fender Jaguar, and he called it the Gumby guitar. It looks like Gumby. And one day I go over there and he's spray painting it black. I go, no, it was like a Sunburst, but brown and black.
Oh, wow.
Well, man, dude, that guitar could be worth a lot of money. And then, so I graduated, and my dad told me, "You want a ring?" I said, "No. What do I want a ring for? I can't even wear them." So we went to the horn shop, and which is now Sound Vibrations, and I got an SG. I wanted a maroon one, but they didn't have. All they had was a brown one, and it had like a Bigsby, but it was a Gibson brand, and so that's what I had for the longest time.
Explain a little bit about that band. You were their kind of their roadie.
The band was named Corpus, and I knew his brother. Well, I knew the guitar player Richard De Leon from school. I would see him there, but I didn't. We weren't friends, and but when I saw him play guitar, I was like, "Man, you're my hero." And then they had another guy named William Lenhart. He was the lead guitar player. He had a black Les Paul. Well, no. Back then, he actually had a casino, Epiphone Casino. Then he got a black Les Paul.
What color was his casino?
I don't remember offhand. I think it might have been black, but I don't think they made him in black, right?
I don't know. They made red, and they might have had and
they had that. I think it was a sunburst, like a brown sunburst,
right? A brown sunburst.
And but I only saw him that one time with it. The next time I saw him, he had that Les Paul, brand new. And then he got trainer amplifiers, and it was like a whole bunch of speakers, like 6 of them.
Oh, wow.
And the head, and the whole stage was covered with them. And Richard De Leon he had an acoustic. Yeah, I think it was an acoustic guitar with that super fuzz. Around that time, once I started to learn how to play real good, we decided to form a band. But he was teaching me stuff like Into the Sun by Grand Funk and Walk Away, because that was like a chord. And I had a lot of trouble with it. But when I finally got Black Sabbath one night, and I won't say too much about what happened there, but that's when my mind got opened up, and I learned how to play the song that one night. And it was like I understood what the guitar was like. I just saw it, and I was playing the chord. I was playing the lead. I go to Rudy and said, "Look, I can play now." And then I showed him the other songs he was teaching me. He goes, "Wow, dude, let's start a band." Yeah, let's do it. And I didn't have an amp, and I borrowed one from somebody. It was a Princeton Fender. That thing was awesome. It was sustained for days. And I eventually made it blow up or something. I was notorious for doing that. And
what was the first foot pedal? Or
I was just gonna say that William Lenhart used to use these Boss tones that you connect right to the guitar. There's like a little black box. It had a volume and a distortion where you turn up the distortion. And I liked the way they sounded, so I got one too. And that's what was making those little amps sustain like that. I had to get right in front of it, but man, it was awesome sustain. And I was always blowing up amps.
Your the SG. So after you blew up the amp, I mean, what was next? What was the next victim?
Somebody else's amp. I forget what that one was. It might have been another Fender. But I always remember that Princeton. It was a small amp, but it was pretty loud. And I loved how it used to sustain. And the next one didn't do that. And I don't remember what that one was. I think not too long after that, I saved up enough money and I wanted a Marshall so bad. And I went to Austin, Ray Henning's music store. And they had a Marshall stack, but all I had was $700. And that was $1,600 for the stack.
Oh, wow.
And that's cheap back then, right?
Yeah.
And it was the one with the 4 inputs. I go, oh my God, I gotta have this. And so Ray tells me, look, I got this amplifier here. It's a Fender Quad. It's got 4 speakers. It's 300 amps. And it's set in the back, 300 amps.
Right.
So I plugged into it and I'm playing Hendrix or whatever I was playing. And some guy was there listening to me. You sound like that other kid that comes over here, Stevie. And I didn't know who he was. And I told Ray, you know what? I'll take this amp. I got to call Stevie. I go, who's Stevie? Everybody's talking about Stevie. And he gives him a call and, hey, Stevie, I got somebody here who wants to buy that Fender Quad. Are you going to want it or not? And I guess he said no because he comes back and said, Stevie says you can have it. All right. You never heard of Stevie Ray Vaughan? No, I never heard of him. He's really good. You kind of remind me of him. He got that Hendrix vibe, and he does Hendrix really good. Wow, I'd like to hear him. Well, he won't be coming out here tonight. Maybe he come by tomorrow. He'll probably be here tomorrow. I said, no, I got to go back. We're going back to Corpus tonight. So I bought it. He wanted a little more than $700, and I told him, this is all I got. I showed him the cash. Okay, we'll work it out. We'll work it out with the tax and whatever and blah, blah, blah. And he sold it to me for $700. Took off back home.
Wow.
And had that amp for years till one day it caught on fire. I already had a Marshall by then. And I hadn't played it in years. And I plugged it in here in the house and it only had one speaker working. I think that's why it blew up.
Oh, wow.
Boom! And there's a flame shooting out from the back of it. I covered it with a blanket.
Wow.
Oh, man, what the fuck happened here? Anyway, so there goes my Fender. I still have my Marshall, though. Now I'm afraid to turn that one on. It might do the same. But all the speakers work, though.
Yeah. So your SG, how you had that? Because you said that was your primary guitar there for a couple of years, I imagine, until your next
more than a couple of years.
Yeah.
I think more like 4 or 5 years. Eventually, I saved up and I got a Les Paul, and I wanted a white one, and Sound Vibrations was there, and they had that Silverburst, and the owner called it the MoonBurst. Like, oh, cool. So I got that. He sold me, and I had the SG as a second, but that thing would always get out of tune. Found out that the neck had been stripped. The thrust rod. So it couldn't hold the tuning, and it's still like that. But every time I bring it out, I take it easy on it, and it doesn't get out of tune as much. I went through different pickups on that thing till I ended up with DiMarzio's. And
by this time, you've already continuing with your pedals. You were already getting different pedals and stuff like that, building your.
Eventually, I think I got an MXR, Distortion Plus, and for some reason it lost like its power or something. And then I found the what was it, Boss Heavy Metal.
Mm-hmm.
I got that, and that had a better sound. it still had that high end, that top end that I didn't like. I was always trying to knock that out, and everybody tells me, no, you got to turn it up. Well, I like to turn the mids up, get that vocal sound like a voice.
Right.
And everybody always wanted to bring that down and pick up the highs and the lows, and I never liked that sound.
Your boss tone, the pedals, whatever happened to those? They just crapped out. You just
they just stopped working, and they were cut out all the time, and it's still there somewhere.
Rich just showed me he sent me a picture, a 1960s Boss Tones worth $400, or at least going for $400.
I wish I could get one. I'd like to plug that in again, hear it again.
Yeah,
but I'm not gonna pay for it. I think I paid like $150 for it, maybe less.
Wow,
maybe like $125 is what it costs.
And so the MXR you had, was that the goldish mustard colored one?
Yeah, that's what it was.
Okay, I remember seeing that one on your pedal board.
Yeah, and eventually I was using two. One was to boost it, and one was the rhythm. And then when I got the MX, not the MXR, the Boss heavy metal one, I would use the MXR to boost it. That would be the boost. Because
and that one was a black pedal, right? The heavy metal one?
Yeah, with orange letters.
Yeah.
And I had that for the longest time.
Then you had a hodgepodge of all kind of different pedals.
The 8-second delay. You had an 8-second delay, right? Or was it a 4-second? Yes.
It was
Digitech.
Yeah, it was a Digitech, and I think might have been 10 or 11.
Yeah, it was 10 or 11.
You could play a whole phrase and sample it. And then I used to be really good at it. And then now I try to do it with another pedal that I have. And oh man, I can't get the hang of it anymore. I don't know what happened. But
what was your favorite pedal out of, that's the thing, finding a, whatever that magic pedal is that you couldn't go without. What was that pedal?
It had, I guess it was the Echoplex. I was in love with that thing.
Right.
It was the Maestro Echoplex, and where you could move that tape that had a thing on the top where you move it up and down, and it sound like a flying saucer. And you would make it sustain, and that one also had like a playback thing, but it wasn't as long. It was more, I think it was like 5 seconds.
Wow.
And I still have it there.
Well, I remember when you got the oral exciter.
Oh yeah, I remember that. That's still there.
It made a difference in sound, just like
it kind of, because I had the 2 amps, and I had the Marshall and the Fender, and it would kind of like give it a wide stereo sound. That's what I did like about that. And that was really cool. Gave me a real wide sound, and then you put the stereo chorus, even better. It was like, wow, that sounds so cool. And by then the Echoplex had crapped out because the tapes were always busting, and so I got the that delay pedal that I had that had that long sample thing.
Yeah, the Digitech.
Yeah, the Digitech.
Yeah,
and eventually I got another one, another Digit, because that one was starting to mess up. It started making a weird noise in the signals chain. So I had to get rid of it, and then I got a smaller Digitech pedal delay. I don't remember which one it was, but that's what I started using. And eventually I ran into WEM Copycat, WEM, and it was made in England. I don't remember how I got that. I think they had it at Sound Vibrations. and it sounded really similar to the Echoplex. So I used that for a while, but that was had a very short tape, and it was always busting. And that's when I went to the digital kind.
When did the V come into play?
We were playing in the Aransas Pass or Port Aransas. It was Port Aransas at the Sail Club, and some guy showed up with that the V Gibson, and it was a Sherry Burst. And I fell in love with it right away. And he said, "I'll sell it to you for $400." And that's what we were going to get paid for that gig we were doing. So I asked the band, lend me the money and I'll get it back to y'all when we get home. And they did. We got paid that night and I paid the guy. And that guitar was mine. But it ended up having a twist in the neck.
Oh, wow.
And I think it's straightened out because I bring it out every once in a while and I don't have the issues I used to have. But, I'm not moving around like I used to. I'm just sitting here now.
Yeah.
I used to jump all over the place. And I think that's what was knocking it out of tune. Eventually, my Les Paul, the Silverburst, I put a Kaler in there. Some guy that worked at Sound Vibrations did it for me. And man, he did a great job. And it never got out of tune. That was another problem I was having with that one. Was also knocking out of tune. And I got the Kaler, and it's still on there.
What and what year? Well, see, it's kind of do you know around what year that was? That you put that Kaler in?
It might have been 80, around the early 80s.
It was before the Def Leppard, Steve Clark, right? Or before you ever saw Steve Clark put that in his.
Yeah, it was before I saw him.
Yeah.
Because when I saw him, I go, "Oh wow, look, somebody else is doing it."
Yeah.
Because the guy that worked at Soundvise, he was a really cool dude, man. He was the only guy that really treated me really cool. And I was telling my problem of getting out of tune, and he said, "Well, why don't you get a Kaler? This will keep it in tune. You can go crazy on the whammy bar, and it'll stay in tune. I guarantee it." And it did. He installed it for me, but he took out a chunk of wood out of it, and that kind of killed the tone a bit. It wasn't as thick as it used to be. It had a lighter sound to it.
Wow.
But I still liked it. I kind of compensated with my own EQ and got what I wanted.
Yeah.
And then eventually I put in a DiMarzio Blackfinger in there. And that, it beefed it up a lot.
So when the sound, I guess, evolved, and changed a lot when Slammer, was there a guitar that you felt was the guitar that you liked playing, or did you just because usually some people have a primary guitar and then a backup guitar. What would you say that main guitar was for when you were in the band?
For a while, I went to the pawn shop and I found this guitar. It was like it had alembic pickups. It didn't have a brand name except in the backplate. It said ESP. And I really didn't know what and like somebody put it together.
Right. Like a kit.
And so I took out the alembic pickups and I put a DiMarzio, and it was active. It was an active pickup, but the pickup was not, but I hooked it up somehow, and it was huge. It was like 10 times louder than what it used to be. If I would put another guitar in there, the volume would fall. But I would plug in that guitar, and it was like I had to bring everything down. So it was really hard to use another guitar as a backup. But I don't know. I wasn't supposed to have been doing what I did. And that pickup ended up getting fried. It lasted a long time. I mean, for years. It was working good. And then all of a sudden, what's wrong with the pickup? Why am I losing my sound? It turned out that it fried the pickup.
Oh, wow.
And so I ditched all that and I put in that Kirk Hammett thing.
Oh,
Remember
yeah. The EMGs.
Yeah. I put that in there. And that's what's still on there. And it sounds really good.
Yeah, I like the way that guitar looks.
Yeah.
White with a black pickup.
And it was, influence from the Jakey Lee.
Yeah.
I never knew what brand that it was. I just know it had alembic pickers. I think it was somebody just put it together.
Eddie Van Halen style.
Yeah, it was a Frankenstein. I made it into a Frankenstein. I remember I was playing with that with this band I joined called Night of Madness. And some guy had given me Gibson Sonics black with an amp. It was a bass Bantam Fender amp. And I was playing guitar through it, and we were having our first rehearsals. And that thing sounded monstrous. And we were jamming this heavy song, and lightning shot out from the speaker into my guitar, back and forth, like, wow. And boom, the amp blew up. But everybody saw that lightning bolt that shot from the amp, went to my guitar. I'm surprised I didn't get shot. And I go, what? And the speaker was made of like styrofoam. And it wasn't round. It was square and then cut off on one top corner of it. The weirdest amp I've ever seen. And it was a bass Bantam amp by Fender.
Wow.
But it sounded really good with the guitar while it lasted. And I was only using that because I didn't want to lug my Marshall around. And when we started practicing at Barton Street Pub before it opened up, then I took my Marshall over there.
I wanted to look back on some of the things that you've kind of mentioned, but through the years, I mean, well, we didn't even scratch the surface of something.
Oh, if you get me talking about guitars,
but
all your time.
Yeah, but see, that's the thing. We can always revisit, another time. But I guess of the early gear, let's kind of focus on the early gear. What is a piece that you either miss or that you always, it holds a certain part? Because I know that you had said you wanted the white Les Paul. You ended up with this. We didn't even get into a dark chapter of your Les Paul, which I think would be an interesting thing to talk about at a later date.
When it got stolen.
Yeah.
And it ended up coming back.
Yeah. But
that's a whole story in itself.
Yeah, we'll save that nugget for some other time. But looking back at some of your the amps that have blown or guitars that you've had, what is a piece of gear that you always think about that you had that holds the most sentimental?
Well, it's got to be that Les Paul, that Silverburst, MoonBurst.
Yeah.
Because of what happened to it. And I've gotten offers to, from people wanting to buy it, and I just couldn't let it go. Too much sentimental value to it.
Yeah.
And, and I wish I could have it refitted, but afraid.
That guitar has a life on its own, because eventually Adam Jones from Tool basically put that, what could have been a forgotten instrument of like a novel, because it came out in 76 and then it came out at some different times. But that Silverburst, because what happened is it had that weird flaw that it would turn green. It would have that greening effect. But here comes Tool, and then everybody starts scrambling for Silverburst to the point where you have different guitar companies with their own Silverburst.
Everybody started doing it. ESP and who was the other one that was doing them?
Fender,
Epiphone.
Epiphone, Fender. Everybody has some kind of silver.
Yeah, that's right. Even
guitar.
Fender had the Fender Silverburst.
It's so.
But, I think mine's is a 70. Oh, I know I posted it somewhere.
I think it was what, 75, 76?
78.
78?
I thought it was a 78.
I thought it was during that centennial time, but you probably
I'm
right.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And the number 78 keeps popping into my head. That
Ace Frehley edition. Kiss Alive too.
Oh no. I remember Rudy had a Cherry Burst and it was brand new and he sold it. He didn't want to sell it to me because he didn't want me to have it.
Wow.
No, I'm going to get jealous if I see you with it. And then he bought a Black Beauty Les Paul for like $400 from some lady that she bought for her son that never learned to play. And so Rudy got it. And then he pawned that off real cheap. No. He traded for a Kramer Beretta.
Oh, no.
Oh my God, Rudy, you don't know what you just lost. That guitar is worth a lot. And it was that time when it was worth a lot of money.
Jeez.
Nah, that guitar sucked. I go, no, dude, you don't know what you just did. You shouldn't have done that.
Wow.
You should have sold it to me. If you were going to let it go for that cheap, I would have given you the 700.
Wow.
When it was worth 4,000 or 5,000.
Yeah. A Black Beauty. People pay good money for.
Clausen's the one that advantage of him. He knew what he was doing.
He made him drink the coffee.
Sorry, Mr. Clausen.
Yeah, he drank the coffee. And that's what happens, folks, on the Migas podcast. If you end up drinking the coffee, you make crazy trades and all that kind of stuff. I want to thank my Uncle Jessy for sharing some guitar stories. If you got an interesting guitar story and you would like to share a picture of your guitar, hey, share it on our website. Send it to us. Let's talk about it.
Especially if you have a Silverburst.
There you go. If you have a Silverburst, we'd like to know more about it as well. A vintage also. Let us know if you got a new one, an old one, or something you put together, like like a kit guitar too. But I want to thank Jessy for being on the podcast.
A pleasure.
And sharing this. And I'm pretty sure we can get him on and we can talk about you name it. We can talk about EBOs next time, but we'll see what happens. What happens with that? I want to thank my brother for joining me again, and we'll put it there, and we'll see you next time on the Migas podcast.
Bye-bye.